welcome to a special edition of DNET, the Disability Network. I'm Susan Pettit-Crossman. People who stutter often withdraw from social situations because of difficulties they have communicating. Stuttering is a disability that can affect members of the family, friends, and schoolmates. There is no cure for stuttering, but it can be controlled. Today, we're featuring excerpts from a documentary on the subject titled Voices to Remember. The film was produced and directed by filmmaker Vladimir Bonderenko, who grew up with a stutter.
It's a pretty place, and it's like an island, and it has some trees on it. It has rocks on it. Nobody's there to bug me or tease me or anything.
Come away, you human child, to the waters and the wild, fairy hand in hand, for the world's more full of weeping than he can understand.
She really disappears into books. She devours them. And I think it takes her to faraway places. But I think when she reads, she becomes the person in the book, and she's totally fluent. She can always say what she wants to say in the book.
Alyssa reads a lot, and she really likes to imagine being some of the characters. I'm sure she goes a lot of places that I will never know. She talks about the secret garden and different books she's reading, but she's never told me about a certain place that she goes.
Alyssa has always had a real heart of compassion. I think stuttering has given her more grace to see people the way they are. She just accepts them for the way they are, the way they look, and the way they sound.
Comes the human child to the waters and the wild, fairy hand in hand, for the world's more full of me.
When Alyssa was a very young child, she was very bubbly and talkative. She chatted everybody up. And when the stuttering started to come back, she started just nodding her head to conversations, yes or no. If someone asked her how old she was, she would put up, 8 fingers or 9 fingers, and she just answered yes or no, basically, and she didn't really talk for a very long time.
Yeah, I know.
You're gonna need a saddle to ride on him.
The support that you find in the community sometimes comes from surprising places. For instance, as she goes to the Value Mart, the owner of the local grocery store has always taken the time to wait and to be kind and to listen to her and show her affection and show that she's important to him as a person.
Your mom has sent you down for some flowers?
Yeah.
Yeah? Is it her birthday or?
No, she just wanted to plant
Some flowers?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
So how fluent are you going to be on this?
I'm going to be 100%.
100%? That's your goal?
Yes, it is.
Okay, let's get started. I see a cub.
I see a dime.
Perfect. I see an eye.
I see an egg.
What'd you think?
It was good.
So what controls are you going to use, Alyssa?
I'm going to use prolongations and lots of air.
Lots of air. now. The first few months were the most challenging, and there were times where I really felt for the first time that I couldn't help her. And she leaned over and she gave me a big hug. Now, most kids, when they give you a hug, it's because they need it. But I knew from Alyssa, it was because she knew I needed it. So even though she was struggling with this disorder and she was being very disfluent and stuttering, she reached over because she felt that I had a need. But you did great.
Yeah.
Okay, let's count 1, 2.
Hi, I'm Sue Turner. When was the last time you were really nervous? So nervous, in fact, that your hands were sweaty, your mouth was dry, and your heart was pounding. Just for a moment, imagine having that feeling every time you are about to speak. Stuttering affects every aspect of a person's life. It creates tension and anxiety from the moment you wake up to when you fall asleep at night. And it is a big deal. How can a young child, a teenager, or an adult develop any self-esteem or confidence when they can't even say their own name? Moses, Aristotle, Sir Isaac Newton, Charles Darwin, Sir Winston Churchill, and Marilyn Monroe all were known for and took great pride in their accomplishments. But what they hid was their stutter. For 2.5 million people in North America, living with a stutter is a constant challenge every day of their lives. Every child who stutters has felt the ridicule of being teased, and it's often so hard to fight back. As they grow up, it becomes a painful memory that only a positive attitude, or even better, a sense of humor, can help heal. The fear and humiliation of stuttering can be devastating, not only in your family or social life, but also in the workforce, where the ability to speak your mind quickly and clearly can mean the difference between success and failure. For many people who stutter, the school dropout rate is high. Job options are limited to positions requiring minimal communication, and challenging career aspirations are often abandoned.
Okay, remember to breathe after act. Every 4 syllables you breathe.
Evening time. Je viens de Montréal, Québec. Mon père.
That's why a self-help support group can become a crucial component of long-term speech therapy. No one knows this better than Dr. Einer Boberg and Larry Stone. They helped lay the groundwork for CAPS, the Canadian Association for People Who Stutter, which was formed at a conference in Banff, Alberta. 2 of the most popular topics discussed at the conference related to the most basic of human needs: finding a job and falling in love.
I was just telling her about...
I think it's difficult for the public to understand the types of things that go on beneath the iceberg of stuttering. What they don't see is the planning, the scheming, the fear, the apprehension, and that, in fact, your entire life is structured around where you might or might not be able to talk. You organize all your social situations trying to minimize punishment.
I remember saying to my uncle, it's as if I'm married to 2 people. There's the person who that I know when I'm with him by myself, and then there's the other person that I see when he's with other people. And it's hard to bear. It takes a lot of acceptance and patience to keep going with it.
I think from my point, which I think reflects what Julia's saying, is that For me, the hardest thing during those early days of our marriage was to present a face that wasn't me, to present myself as somebody who had no ideas, no opinion, who wasn't interested in anything, because that was my defense mechanism. But I'm really a person who loves to argue. I love to discuss things. I'm interested in many things, but particularly to the people that I cared about, my in-laws. I wanted to impress them. And I knew I was presenting myself as a person that they would wonder, why in the world is our daughter marrying this man?
My uncle, I knew that's exactly what he was thinking. My God, Julia, what have you done? You had all those men to choose from, and you've picked this one who can't even speak. Well, you're throwing your life away. I know that's what he was thinking. He was absolutely puzzled. I mean, he just couldn't understand what I was doing and why this had happened. I'm sure he regarded it as a complete tragedy.
I work as an engineer for a general contractor.
Larry was trying to say Royal Bank, and he was having an awful time. His eyes were rolling back, and he was just getting frustrated with himself, and his face was getting red. And Heather was very patient. She didn't interrupt, but she finally looked up at him, and she just took his mouth, and she put her lips over by his, and she made his mouth move, and she said, Royal Bank.
There's one guy I know that goes in at 1/4% markup on schools. I mean, you can't make any bloody any money on 1/4%. That won't even pay for that won't pay to turn the lights on in our office.
I'd first met Larry 3-4 months before and persuaded him to come here based on a couple factors, his technical ability, which seemed very sound, and his ability to deal with people.
Larry, can you believe that? We got a price on the Alpac job a day early.
Day before. Incredible.
We do projects anywhere from $500,000 to 25, 30 million in size. And dealing with people is very critical. Clear and accurate communication is worth millions on a project, and Larry handles that very well. He's turned out to be a very valuable employee, and his people skills are just continuing to improve.
Steve, about having breaking off these walls here and doing.
After seeing with Larry, Larry has conquered his speech impediment to the point where you can't recognize it. I wouldn't hesitate if that person had the sincerity and the technical ability. I wouldn't hesitate to hire a second person like that.
Gentle start on the can, glide the voice on, and then
First, you have to admit that you've got a speech problem. If you don't admit you've got a problem, nothing in the world is going to help you. Absolutely nothing. There is help out there, and I'm living proof. We've got 80 people here that are proof that if you get therapy, it will help you. There is no such thing as a cured stutterer. I'll always be a stutterer till the day I die. I just learned to be a control stutterer.
There are many myths that people carry around about stuttering. One of them is that stuttering is a personality disorder, and they somehow feel that all people who stutter have a problem with talking to others, or they're very shy, or they have some deep psychological problem, and that's why they're being disfluent. And that is totally false. They have done many studies that have showed that the stuttering population is normal in every way. Yes, there may be some people that have psychological disorders, but at the same rate as the general population. So that is a myth. The other one is that all children, if you ignore stuttering, will outgrow it. That is not generally the case. Many children do outgrow this problem, but there are children who don't.
Ages ago, a young lad named Jock found it very hard to speak. He made a promise to himself that one day he would write a book about stuttering so the whole world would understand.
The first day to school, I was asked a question, and I wasn't able to answer it because I could not speak. And that they said I was being awkward and insolent. So my first day at school, I got spanked. I often used to solve my feelings of anguish and anxiety by going up into the mountains alone. And I remember once I was up high, 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 and I was on a cliff, and I stared out over the drop. There was a straight vertical drop of 1,000 feet or over. And I remember that flash saying to myself, Jock, it will be so easy to step out into the space, and then it would be all over in an instant. And I remember saying to myself, but yeah, Jock, that would be so uninteresting. Think what a challenge a stutter is. So why not start living?
There are many occasions when earlier on I would have to order the food in a restaurant. Now I don't have to order the food in a restaurant. I absolutely refuse to make his phone calls for him now, which is wonderful. I leave him to struggle. I leave him. He's very, very good if he's got a complaint to make in a store. Today, he's very, very good. I just walk out and leave him to get on with it. There are things I don't have to worry about anymore. But particularly the phone call bit, I don't have to make those phone calls.
Everyone has a disability of some kind or another, whether it's something in their own perception of themselves or whether it's a real problem like a stutter. We all have our own disabilities. We all have the things that we carry around on our backs like Old Man of the Sea. We all expect other people to make allowances for our own failings. And surely we should make more time for people who have real problems if we're expecting other people to make time for our own perceived problems.
I think a lot of people are just looking for someone who understands how they feel, you know, have had that kind of experience and can give them a little hope.
And forever after, Jock's book taught many people about stuttering and always gave hope and inspiration to anyone with a physical handicap.
Turner? I don't even remember what it was. My mother doesn't recall. When I look at that tape tonight, I see a person that stuttered. I see me, but more than the stutter, I see what went on behind the stutter, the anxiety, every speaking situation, and the speed that I spoke, just so I could get the words out and over with as fast as I could. And I was watching my expressions, and I know what I was doing. I was speaking, and I was about 3 thoughts ahead because I had to pick my words before I spoke because I had to avoid the words that I couldn't say, and just the constant anxiety that I had learned to live with. And now, after 5 years, it's clear to me that I was under that tension from the moment I woke up until when I went to bed at night. And it's incredible that I've come this far. I just feel so free.
Becoming fluent in therapy or on a course, so say, is a relatively easy part. It's like going on a diet, you lose weight. It's keeping it off. And it's a constant vigil. And very hard if you think, trying to listen to how you're speaking, and every time you open your mouth, think how you're going to speak, as well as think what you're going to say and do your work and 1,000 other things on your mind. So it's an almost impossible task to ask for this constant focus on something which for the rest of us we take for granted.
Hi, Sue. It's Melissa. I just received your tape in this morning's mail. You're sounding very good.
Possibly. Probably. Even though I've been given the tools to be fluent, it's never automatic. After 5 years, I still have to think about every word that I say. Here I'm the nurse, and I should be the one in control and in a position to be able to reassure the parents. And how can I reassure anybody when my speech was so disfluent? And situations like that were very difficult for me, and I hated them. I think I've had to work harder than other people to get where I am today because of my disability. I'd like to think that I'm more sensitive, perhaps, to other people's problems and their own particular needs.
I'm lonely, basically.
I think I've probably succeeded because of the efforts that I've had to make. And I don't know, but I just think sometimes the person who does not have a struggle in their life, they just carry on without really reflecting. And I think I've had to do quite a bit of reflecting in my 45 years. And I think that I'm here today because of my stutter.
She's a speech pathologist, and she helps me by being patient.
I find that interesting because when she first read it to me, I didn't tell her, but she was the one that taught me the patience. And she gave that, to me. And so I found it interesting that she called me Patience.
In August of next year, the International Fluency Association will be holding an international congress in Munich, Germany. It's the first congress of its kind. It will bring self-help associations and professionals together. The Canadian Association for People Who Stutter will be having their next national conference in 1995. If you'd like more information, write to us. That's our show. I'm Susan Pettit-Crossman. Now, here's our address. Disability Network, CBC, Box 500, Station A, Toronto, M5W1E6. That's the Disability Network, CBC, Box 500, Station A, Toronto, M5W1E6. This program is brought to you in part by the Centre for Independent Living in Toronto and the Canadian Association of Independent Living Centres.